Hello, and thank you so much for joining us again today. I'm Nicole Hutchison, owner and CEO at Statera Integrated Health and Wellness Solutions. This is week 4 in our 5-week series, our Spring Lunch and Learn series for 2022. I'm here with Dr. Linda Peterson, who has graciously agreed to do this series for me. And it has been amazing. It's been all about simplifying our lives. And so I'm going to go ahead and share our screen here. Awesome. Okay. So today, let's see, February 24th, we talked about a self-evaluation. Is it time to simplify your life? March 10th, we talked about simplify your thinking. And on the 24th, we talked about simplify your space. And so if you missed any of those, they are recorded and available on demand on our website. If you go to our main landing page and scroll down about 2/3 of the way, you will see those available. They are free to watch anytime, anywhere. So make sure you take advantage of those and share them with others if you'd like to. Also, we do have resources available for you, little worksheets that kind of help you so you can take notes, answer a few questions for yourself, do a little reflection along the way. Those are available on our website under resources. And so make sure you take advantage of those as well. And then today we're going to be talking about simplify your schedule. So we're going to be talking about getting that clutter out of our schedules, right? Because I know my schedule, there's clutter. I know there is. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that more today. But so if you haven't already, if you'd like to head over to our website to the resources tab and print the worksheet for today. Otherwise, grab a pen and paper and just take notes along the way. And yeah, I think we're ready to get started.
Let's do it.
Here we go.
All right. You know, this first screen is a little bit of a joke, but not so much, because I think a lot of us, this could be our calendar. We're busy. And I find that when I ask people, how you doing? The most common response I get is, I am so busy. So busy. Yeah. And we kind of glorify that. So one of our goals is to, through this, these sessions, these lunch and learns, is to not glorify being busy. And it's not so much a problem. Busy is not so much the problem as what are you busy doing? And so that's what we're going to look at today and help you find some ways to analyze that for yourself. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions here, and I'd like you to just think. You can jot down, they're all yes or no, and kind of think through this for yourself. Do you feel like your day is constantly running away from you? Does it seem to be impossible to balance all the things on your plate? Do you struggle to keep all the balls in the air while walking on a tightrope? I don't know how many miles above the earth.
Like it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Do you ever have to take time off from work because of how tiring your schedule has become? Do you feel like you have so much you'd like to do, but never have the time? Do you struggle to find time for your basic physical needs, such as hydration, deep breathing, bathroom breaks, and nutrition time? Do you look at your schedule and feel exhausted before you begin your day? And do you typically say yes when you want to say no to things? So if you answered yes to some of these, you may be suffering from commitment clutter. Go ahead. Oh, there you go. Commitment clutter. I love that phrase. You know, I think we think about clutter in our homes and so forth and on our computer, but we do suffer a lot, I think, from overcommitment.
I agree. And I never thought of it as clutter before we started talking about the session today. But it is, it's clutter. And we're going to talk a lot more through today's talk about what is clutter, what's not clutter, and all of that. But yeah.
First, we'd like you to look at this really brief video, a minute or two, and it's about prioritizing your life. So you may have heard this before, it's pretty popular, but let's take a listen.
And I would encourage you to go ahead, even if you think you've seen it before, go ahead and watch it, because there's so many different versions of it available online. It's interesting to see the little nuances, the little differences between them. And then two, if you've seen it before, sometimes when we rewatch something, sometimes we hear or see something or have a different understanding or a different
It can click.
perception.
That little switch goes off.
For sure.
Right.
So, all right, so here we go.
There's a well-known story about a university professor that wanted to make a point about the importance of prioritizing how we spend our time. The professor stood in front of his class with a display of items. He took a large, empty jar and filled it with rocks, approximately 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the class if the jar was full, and they agreed, yes, the jar was full. The professor then took a box of pebbles and added them to the jar and gave it a little shake to move the pebbles into the open areas around the rocks. The professor asked the class again if the jar was full. They agreed. Yes, it is full this time. The professor then took a box of sand and added it to the jar, filling the spaces between the rocks and the pebbles. He asked again, now, is the jar full? They laughed and agreed, yes, it's full. This jar represents your life. The big rocks signify the really important things in your life, such as health, family, and friends. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. And the sand signifies the remaining small stuff, such as material possessions. Now, if you were to reverse the order of filling the jar and add the sand first, there would not be enough room for the rocks and the pebbles. The same principle applies to your life. If you spend too much time on the small stuff, you won't have enough space or time to focus on the things that are truly important, the big rocks. So, prioritize the big rocks first. Practice self-care, spend quality time with the people you love, and the rest is just pebbles and sand. They will always find some space.
I love that. That is just an incredible message. And then I've even heard it done where they poured water then at the end.
Yes.
There's always that little bit more room that you can just fill in. And that's something I'm guilty of, is always just trying to get in that one more thing. And so I love that today we're going to talk a little bit more about establishing those priorities. I like to visualize actually writing on my big rocks what my priority is. So like on one rock, I might put health, on one rock, I might put family. And then that helps me to really better stay focused on what those things are that are most important to me in my schedule each day. So,
well, and just because you can get all of that in the jar, at what cost? To your health and your family and your well-being. And so they do recommend that you have no more than 5 big rocks. Because when I talk to people about setting their priorities, I've had people say they're all a priority. How do I choose? And so it is important to narrow it down to just a few of the big rocks. And I took just a minute to think for myself, and it's really family time, meaningful work, quiet time. Since I'm an introvert, that's my spirituality, recharging time, garden time, and my health, and my husband and my family's health. And so, so be thinking on your worksheet. It actually has a place for you to write down what your 5 big rocks are. So be thinking about that as we go through this today.
And if you're having trouble getting started with that, there are lots of resources available online too, where you can go in and they will have lists of words that are common values, a lot of times is what they're called, or priorities that you can kind of read through to help narrow down to what your top 5 might be. There's also inventories you can take that'll reveal to you what your top priorities. So there's lots of different options available. And know that those priorities don't necessarily have to be permanent. They may shift a little bit, even day to day, but more likely month to month or year to year. And so don't feel like once you pick your 5, those are permanently your 5 forever. No, it does fluctuate just a little bit. And it's important to intermittently reflect on how maybe your priorities have changed and how that needs to change the way that you're living your day. So,
Right.
Good stuff.
So where do you begin with all of this?
Yeah.
The first thing is to really set aside time to sit down and think about what your schedule and what your life looks like right now as far as scheduling and so forth. And are there things that feel overwhelming? What would your ideal day look like? And I've asked people as part of coaching is what are you aiming for? What would your ideal day look like? And most people have no idea. They've never
Never even
taken
thought about
the
it.
time
Yeah.
to really think about it.
Yeah.
And you're probably sitting there thinking, you want me to sit down? I'm so busy. You want me to sit
Yeah.
down and write this down. But I really think if you get yourself a nice little journal and really, how do you feel about your schedule?
Mhm.
You know, are you feeling burned out? Are you overwhelmed? Are you finding yourself getting cranky, you know, with the people you love most? So let's start there. And remember, the goal of that is to have a fulfilling life where you have time for what you love and what matters most to you. Okay.
And I love how you did that in that order, because it is so important to reflect and notice how you are
Mhm.
feeling about your current schedule.
Yeah.
Because so oftentimes, like you said, we don't take the time to reflect on
Mhm.
our schedule. Excuse me. And a lot of times people don't think they have control of their schedule.
Right.
They think that what is in their day, how their day is scheduled, is how it just has to be.
Right.
And that's not true. And so that's one of those myths
Mhm.
that I think we're going to work on kind of
Yeah,
busting
that's a really
today.
good point. I mean, I've had people say they don't hydrate like they should during the day because they
Mhm.
don't have time for bathroom breaks.
Yep.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're going to talk about a few tips for
Yeah.
that as we go through.
Awesome.
So another handout that you have with your worksheets is
Mhm.
just this blank calendar. So once you know what your ideal day would look like, let's take a look at like a bird's eye view of your current schedule. What does your week really look like? And once you see it all laid out, you can see where you might be able to make some changes, maybe delegate something, or see that you're spending so much time on the sand or the pebbles, and it's leaving no time for those big rocks in your life. So the next slide is just something, your schedule might look like this. Now, none of us have a schedule this neat and tidy.
Perfect. Oh,
But, you know, taking that worksheet and really color coding in some way, you know, how much time do you spend sleeping? You know, when do you get up? What's your morning look like? How many work hours? Do you have a lunch break or not? You know, then we talk about dinner and prep, or, you know, running kids to
Mhm.
events or going to games or whatever that might be. And then time for prepping for the next day. And then
Mhm.
weekends, who knows? You may work on a weekend, you may work nights and have your days flipped around. So,
But I love
go
how
ahead.
this is color coded. It's
Mhm.
because then you kind of get at a glance like where you are spending a majority of your time. And
Right.
so something I sometimes do with my clients is get 3 different colors.
Mhm.
And one color is home and family. So
Mhm.
that's everything that has to do with home and family, whether that's cooking for the family, cleaning for the family, running errands, taking care of the households, maybe running kids for their activities, those kinds of things. The second color is for work.
Mhm.
Because for most of us, that is a bulk of our day. If you happen to be retired or something, include those volunteer activities, those things that you are still regularly scheduled to and committed to. And then the third color is for yourself. And so recognizing, making sure
Invisible
that you,
ink.
right, making
Yeah.
sure that you have time for yourself in there. And I
Yeah.
tell people it feels silly sometimes to go
Mhm.
ahead and do a schedule like this. And I even have them write in, like you have here,
Mhm.
work, lunch. I even have them write in hydration,
Mhm.
or you know,
Mhm.
their movement breaks,
Yep.
you know, those kinds of things. So anything that is related to you taking care of yourself,
Mhm.
mind, body, spirits, can be in that third color. And then by using those 3 colors, you can be sure at a glance every day that you're getting all 3 colors into your schedule.
Mhm.
So whatever works best for you though, and
Yep.
take advantage of the worksheets. So
Yeah. Again, it's on our website under resources.
yeah. Yep.
Okay. So we have just a few. I mean, there's many things that we could recommend, but just a few things to think about and consider as far as how to simplify, declutter your schedule. And so we're going to run through those now. And the first one is you have to know your limits and be able to ask for help. We all have different tolerance levels for busyness. I don't tolerate busy the way Nicole can tolerate busy. It might be my age, I don't know, but I've never been. I always have gotten overwhelmed by being much too busy. And part of that's probably being an introvert too. Too many things going on, and I do shut down and get overwhelmed. And so what is your tolerance? And how do you know your breaking points? How do you feel? Are there behaviors, feelings? Maybe you get sick. I remember when I was in college, many years, every Christmas or every holiday break, I would be sick. And I think you get on that schedule of going faster than you really can tolerate. And when you do get a chance to relax, your body tells you you're going to shut way down. So it almost never failed.
And I think it's something that our mental health therapists sometimes talk about, like the window of tolerance too, right? And so within that window of tolerance is where you feel the best, you can function the best, you're the most productive, those kinds of things. As you start to get outside that window of tolerance, that's where you start feeling that overwhelm, that loss of control of your schedule, those kinds of things. And then you may physically, mentally, emotionally feel those symptoms. For me, I know my anxiety goes through the roof. Sometimes my depression will kind of kick in sometimes. Kind of like you, I might shut down and I find that I'm sleeping more, those kinds of things. Maybe you've got some unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Carbohydrates, mashed potatoes and gravy.
There you go. Eating issues, alcohol abuse. And the list goes on. And so knowing your limits, sometimes you have to get outside your limits before you really can recognize where those limits are. And I find my limits do change depending on lots of different factors. But one of the biggest factors, quite honestly, is if I'm not taking that time for myself, my window of tolerance decreases dramatically. And so this is all interrelated. So make sure that you're reflecting on that as well.
Right. Remember, you don't have to do it all. You can ask for help.
Asking for help is like the hardest question in the world, isn't it?
Well, you have to be Superwoman or Superman. Right? You do it all yourself. No,
it's even hard for me. I think it's hard for everyone. And what is it I always tell my clients, though? You would be more than willing to help your best friend or your spouse if they ask for it. You want to be there to help others, but allow others to be there for you too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the second is to manage your priorities. Most people say, I need help with time management. It's really not time management. We have enough time if we're spending it on what's important to us, what our strongest priorities are, our big rocks. If you're spending too much time on the sand and not enough on the pebbles and the big rocks, you're going to start feeling it. So that's why knowing what your priorities are is so important.
And that's those big rocks.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I think it's also interesting sometimes when you're reflecting on your own schedule and priorities and things, if you look at others and you don't understand why they seem to have so much more time in the day than you do, how can they get so much more done in a day than I do? Really reflecting back on what are your rocks, what are your pebbles, what's your sand, and finding that balance.
And then next, again, you're going to say, you think I have time for this, but we're asking you to try to make time for this. Make a list of all the things you do every month, kind of the big things and filler things as well. What can you do less of or release from your responsibility altogether? Because we tend to take things on and keep piling on the plate until it becomes a platter, until it becomes a tray, and things just keep falling off of it. And so we have to look at that and see, before we take on anything new, is there something I can let go of?
That's a really good way of putting it.
It's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Because we've become accustomed to doing it, and being able to ask yourself to step back and say, can I let go of this? And it's just like decluttering in your home.
Mhm.
An object you've had on your shelf forever, can I really let go of this? And so it's a little psychological struggle sometimes to do that, but we're going to ask you to do that. And then, yeah, do you have to make homemade cookies for the bake sale? Can they be from a bakery? Sure. Do you have to volunteer for everything? No. So keep it simple. And remember, you cannot be all things to all people at all times, or there will be nothing left in your tank for yourself and set or the things that matter to you. Now, this is a really hard one. I'm going to ask you to take a pause and think before you say yes and learn to say no. It goes along with what can I take off of my plate. You have to think before you automatically say yes to everything. And do so without guilt, because nobody can do it all. And so I love this little quote: unless you learn to say no, your time will get eaten up with other people's priorities instead of your own.
Oh, I love that.
I do too. I really like that.
That is perfect. And, I always say, when you say yes to something, you're inherently saying no to something else. What is it you're saying no to?
Yeah.
And is it one of your big rocks?
Right.
So, yeah.
And it is hard to say no, but there's ways of softening it, or, just being true to yourself. You can say, no, not at this time. My schedule is full right now. Check back in a year. Thank you, but I'll have to take a pass this time. You can do it in a genuine, honest, and compassionate way.
And sometimes I think people feel like they have to explain why they're saying no.
Yeah.
And you don't have to,
don't
right?
give too much. You don't have to.
No, you really don't.
Yeah.
If they are going to respect the fact that you said no for a very good reason, and that's all that really matters. You don't have to tell them why or make up an excuse or anything like that. So,
and there's that need to be needed. The busiest people get the most requests.
Yeah.
Because we want to be there for others and we want to feel needed. And those people that are saying no, people learn, I can't always dump this volunteer. I shouldn't call it dump it, but to request this, because I know she'll do it. And
there are some people that are, you can always
count on
them and they will always say yes, whether they really can, whether they really have time or not, whether they really want to or not, they're gonna say yes. And there's actually, I just thought of this, there's a really good book called Boundaries that talks a lot about reflecting on when you say yes, when you say no, and how to establish those healthy boundaries for yourself, not just in relationships, but in everything. And it really is worth the read or the listen. And it's one that I've read in the past, listened to in the past. I recommend it to clients all the time. And it would probably be a really good time in my life to read it again. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's phenomenal. So.
Number 5, organize your computer files, keep your inbox clean. I am the worst. I have to say, I spend so much time searching for a document that I've saved. I've got documents from, I don't know how many decades ago on my, some of them are on a floppy disk somewhere, but and so I am so guilty of not making folders and not purging. Again, it's like the drawers and the closets. You have to be willing to purge. And I've got that, again, the Depression era mentality. I may need this, and some of it, I will never need it again. I know I'll never need it, but we hang on to those things. So purge what you can, organize the rest. And I asked Nicole this: how much time do you spend thinking about the emails that are in your inbox?
Yes, because how many emails are in my inbox right now?
How many emails are in your inbox right now?
A little over 500.
Okay. Does that take any energy, Nicole?
Yes, it does. And it's difficult because when I get so many emails, the first thing I do is I go on and triage out the ones that I don't feel like I need to read that day, right? Usually informational ones from MedPage Today or those kinds of things, sale ads, that kind of stuff. And then I leave unread those that I know are going to take me a little bit of time to really read and be able to respond to, the way I want to. But then, yeah, it's always running in the back of my mind that I have all these emails still unread in my inbox that I need to find the time to get back to. But guess what? There's not time allowed in my schedule to get back to them.
Because you're spending time on the sand and the pebbles.
I am. And so then the next day they roll into the next day, and then they
Yeah.
roll into the next day, and there's just no playing catch up.
No, when you get to a certain point.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of things that come in that I've gotten on emailing lists, and I don't need to be on them any longer, but I need to take time to unsubscribe. I could probably cut down on 3/4 of what comes into me by unsubscribing to things.
Yeah.
It's just like paper. The rule is you deal with incoming paper once and be done with it.
Yeah.
I know that's hard, but if you can, I mean, that's one technique
Just
you could use.
do it.
And schedule time 2 or 3 times a day, and only look at your emails then, because the more time you're spending on it,
That's the other hard one too, because the notifications pop up all day long, right? They pop up on my phone, my laptop, my desktop, my watch.
Yeah, chase me.
And every time they pop up, then I'm like, oh, I should probably look at that real quick. And so I need some work in this area.
As do I. Okay, next, 6. Create space in your life for those unexpected events so they don't throw off everything else within your schedule. And we talked last week, I think or 1 week about, allowing 5 to 10 minutes between appointments or longer if you can.
Hey, I did improve a little bit. So instead of scheduling 5 or 10 minutes between appointments, I'm scheduling longer for my appointments than I will really need. So rather than just scheduling 30 minutes, I'm scheduling 45 to an hour.
Perfect.
But now what I'm going to have to work on is not thinking to myself, oh, I have an hour, so we can actually, finish that conversation. I need to remember that I had told them it would be a 30-minute meeting.
Right.
To wrap it up at 30 minutes and then use that 15 minutes not to chase the pebbles and sand again, but then to truly have that space
right.
and use it for one of my priorities. So
it's habit. It's just habit to get into.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
But I do want everyone to remember that our mind, body, and spirit need quiet time during the day, not just while we're sleeping, but during the day. We are more creative, more productive if we take a 5-10 minute break, even a minute break to quiet your mind and get some fresh air, move a little bit and hydrate. That will help us be much more productive in the long run. So
and I will be going from meeting to meeting, like we were talking about before when you suggested scheduling that time between. I will be more present, centered, focused, ready for that next meeting. That next meeting will be more meaningful and productive if I do take that time. So even though it feels like my brain is telling me I'm wasting time when I could be scheduling more into the day to be more productive. And I always tell people too, sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. And so I keep reminding myself that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to slow down so I can speed up. In other words, slow down, have more space in my day so that I can be more on time and I can be more present and ultimately more productive and healthier too, mind, body, and spirit, because I'll take more of that time for hydration and movement and all those kinds of things. So.
Next, number 7, lessons learned from COVID. I hate to say they were any good lessons, but we did learn some things. There were things we always thought we had to do, but we couldn't do them while we were on lockdown, shutdown. It felt like lockdown, didn't it? And we survived.
House arrest.
And hopefully before we started just putting those things back on our plates, we took time to determine, wow, I got along for a year and a half without doing that. Could I do that? Could I continue to do that?
Yep.
And you had a good example of.
That's very true. Some of the families that, maybe they have 2, 3, 4 kids, the kids are involved in 3, 4, 5 different activities. And so they were running constantly, you know, every night, multiple directions.
Yeah.
And then through COVID, when they couldn't do the dance classes, the gymnastics, the baseball, whatever it was, they realized, oh my gosh, life
Yeah.
is a little more simple, a little more calm. They had more
Yeah.
time to sit together and have dinner at the table. They had more time to just spend time with the kids and play games and those kinds of things, rather than rushing from here to there to there to
In the
there.
car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So think about that for yourself, or the things that you had to let go of that now you could just leave them off the plate.
Like you said, those things that you don't really need, releasing those things.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And number 8, are there things that you're doing out of habit or tradition rather than necessity? I think this happens a lot around the holidays. We get into those traditional things like we have to make, I don't know how many dozen homemade cookies because grandma did and mom did. And then you ask the kids and they don't really care if you buy it at, you know, Fairway or make them yourself. You know, so for some families, that is a big rock. Or at least a big pebble, you know, that's a tradition. We love it. The kids love it. But if you take time to ask family members, what do you love most about the holidays? You may find there are things that you're spending a whole lot of time on. For me, the gift bag, I used to spend time trying to wrap every gift beautifully with ribbon and little flowers and stuff. Now everything goes in a gift bag. And you know what? Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. And I spend a lot less time and energy on it.
And you can reuse them. And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next is meal planning and preparation. So this is really important to not eliminate, but cut down on the stress and chaos when you arrive home from work or when the family congregates, you know, after the school and work day. The more you can plan ahead and use things like your crock pot. I don't have an Instapot, but
I have an Instapot.
People really like it.
Yep.
Instapot, air fryer. You can do make ahead meals, or you can buy make ahead meals from places like Convivium, Hy-Vee, other places online. There's a whole lot of different choices. Make double batches for the freezer. I don't make soup without making a double or triple batch. And all winter, there's a lot of nights. All we do is warm up some good soup from a couple months ago. And then, and delegate responsibility. It doesn't have to fall all on one set of shoulders. Other people can help. And maybe even planning your top 10 or 15 meals and then rotating those. So you know when you go to the store, you don't need a lot of special ingredients. You kind of have it down. Then on the weekends, maybe try something new to add to your rotation.
And we could spend a whole other recording just on meal planning and prep. So if you have more questions about that, make sure you schedule with a health coach or somebody who can kind of help you with that, because there are so many different ways you can do that. But think of it this way, just for the simplicity for today, the calendar, the planner that Linda shared with you, schedule in when are you going to meal plan and sit down with your spouse, your family, significant other, whoever's in the household with you that you share meals with, and really talk about, okay, what's our schedule for this week? And realistically, how many meals are we going to have together at home? And we can spend more time cooking. How many are going to need to be quicker, more simple, or leftovers, or those kinds of things? And kind of get all of that put together your grocery list. And I even encourage, go to the grocery store, get it all home, prep as much as you possibly can at the beginning of the week. And then as your week goes on, what you'll find is it simplifies things so much. Again, you're kind of slowing down to speed up, right?
Yeah.
If you're planning ahead, you're going to be more prepared, more efficient, and you're going to find that you go through the drive-through less.
Yes.
Take out less, order pizza less. So you're actually going to end up saving more money in the long run too.
And eating
quite
healthier.
Honestly, and eating healthier. Yeah, for sure. So definitely consider working with a health coach or somebody that can help you through that process.
Okay, and then the last one we have is pay some attention to your morning and bedtime routines. Routines are a way to make sure that the most important things get prioritized. because when something is a habit, it requires less mental energy. So like Nicole,
That's
with
true.
your emails, if you get into the habit of changing it up for something maybe more efficient that works for you, it's going to take less of your mental energy and you're not going to feel quite so drained. Please don't start the day by looking at social media or the news or looking at your phone at all in bed. That's a really good way to start your day in chaos instead of in peace, and begin your day by reflecting on what you're grateful for and what your intentions are today, to have a slower paced day. And
what are your big rocks?
What are your big rocks?
Are
Yep.
they
What's
scheduled
important
into your day?
Yep.
Yeah.
And and then a great day can begin with your evening routine. And when I was working full time, I always figured out what I was going to wear the next day, because I'm one of those that could have 3 or 4 outfits on the bed because nothing felt right, with the mood for the day. And so I would really try to, plan in advance that it was clean and ready to go. So there was just a little more calm time in the morning.
But in talking about routines, it's just as important for adults as it is for kids. To have that routine. So as silly as it sounds for an adult to have a bedtime routine, it's imperative. And I love how you said a good day can begin with a good evening routine. Did you say that?
Yeah.
Because that is so very true, because setting yourself up for success the night before to have a restful night's sleep, recover from the day, be ready for the next day, you're going to hit the ground running in a very different mindset and mental energy than if you already feel like you are kind of behind the 8 ball.
You wake up behind.
Yeah.
And then pre-prepping lunches. Again, when you've planned and prepped, you've got things for lunches that you don't have to scrounge around or go through the drive-through.
Or call Jimmy John's.
Then the last thing we want to talk about is making use of scheduling tools. And I swear by the old stand by the wall calendar. Thank goodness they still make them. It's something I've used my whole life. My parents used, and right now it's only Dave and myself at home, but I don't know how we would survive without it, because, between work and appointments and doctor's appointments and this and that. And I don't know how a busy family can survive without some sort of visual schedule that they all can see what's coming up for the week or the month even.
It's good for kids too. To be able to, they get in that habit and for them to see what's coming up for them and for mom and dad and the family and everything. So we do the same thing. We have a wall calendar. It's in our mudroom where the kids would come in every morning to, get their shoes on, put their coats on, get their book bags, those kinds of things. And then every evening after school, they'd come in, see that wall calendar again. Every night after activities, they would see it. And so they saw it regularly. So it was kind of ingrained a little bit. That's one of my December rituals, I guess you would call it, is I look for my new calendar for the new year. And it is. It's very important.
And letting the family share in those responsibilities and having that visual that everyone can see. And then you don't get that frantic, Mom, I need 2 dozen cupcakes today for school.
That never happens.
So, and then with planners and calendars, I love my paper. I do. I am not fast on the computer or the phone looking, especially on the phone, trying to look things up. And so I like my paper calendar, and Nicole loves the planner calendar journal. Do you want to talk about how that works for you?
Yeah, I wish I had it actually right here next to me. I don't. It's over in the corner. But I love trying to simplify things as much as I can. And so rather than having kind of everything spread out in lots of different places, I like to bring them all together into one. And so in my kind of planner calendar journal, I always at the top of it keep what are my 3 priorities for this week. So I have my 3.
Good.
This week it's faith, family, and focus. That tends to be it most weeks, actually. And so I see that every day. Usually I will write some kind of a scripture or inspirational quote or something at the top of the pages. So then every time I glance at my calendar, I'm also seeing those reminders of what are my big rocks. What is my focus for this week, those kinds of things. And then I do still use some of I don't use the color coding right now, but on my journal, or on my calendar, it has 3 sections. And so one section is work and my daily schedule. One section is what I need to do for that day, kind of my to-do list. And then another section is more my personal things, what I want to get done for that day. So I still kind of use that concept, but I've adjusted it just a little bit. But even though I still have the paper calendar, the wall calendar, which seems like a lot of duplication, I do use the online ones too. So I know you're going to talk about that next a little bit.
Well, you are.
Oh, I am. Okay. So the online tools, obviously we live in a day of technology. And so there's so many different online tools available that it can be actually time consuming and overwhelming to look at all of them, sometimes to use them too. And so make sure you do a little research, but don't overwhelm yourself with all the options. Just pick one to get started. And then as you're using that tool, you're going to learn what you like, what you don't like about it. And then if you need to find something different, you can. But I use just a regular Google Calendar, which I love because it integrates in through my emails. It picks up through my emails. If I have a virtual meeting, it automatically schedules that on my Google Calendar for me. I have several different calendars on my Google Calendar, if that makes sense. And so I have a shared calendar with my family, with my son and my husband, so that if there are things coming up that they need to know about or that they want to share with me, those show up on all of our calendars. And then I have my work calendar that's integrated into it. So it will actually show me all of my work events that I need to see. And then I have my personal is purple actually. And so anytime purple pops up on my schedule, I know that is something more specifically scheduled just for me and my eyes only. But here's the good thing about having both the digital and the paper, right? So and again, we could do a whole other, podcast or workshop on this, but just in a nutshell today, think about it this way. I was driving to work one morning, had my digital calendar, it's been several years ago, and all of a sudden my phone crashes. I can't, it's a black screen. I can't get on my phone. I can't see who my next client is, where to go. I can't see, I can't pick up the phone to call anybody to ask them, let them know I'm going to be late or anything. I was just lost. I literally pulled to the side of the road. I didn't know what to do. And finally, I just gave up and I'm like, I've just got to drive to Verizon to get my phone fixed because I didn't at the time keep a duplicate paper calendar. But now that I keep the paper calendar, that kind of fits into my evening routine, my preparation for the next day. So once a week, I kind of fill in the calendar for the week. And then each evening I review the next day. So it gives me a little bit of closure on what happened today, what's coming up tomorrow. I can kind of mentally plan and prepare for that. And then I can kind of turn that off so that then I can spend the rest of my evening just more present and mindful for myself, my husband, empty nesters now, but when the kids are home with them, and then be more ready the next morning, look over it one more time, check on the digital to see if anything has changed, and then be able to have my day organized and ready and laid out for me. So lots of benefits to keeping both, honestly. And then, like I said, there's lots of different options out there. So search for the one that's right for you. I know there's a lot of different options for personal calendars and scheduling and organization, and also for groups. So depending on what kind of an organization you work with, there may be some scheduling tools that you want to use for your organization that could help you with more clear communication and those kinds of things. So,
yeah. And like you said, the point is finding out what works best for you. And I want to say again, it's, in working with clients, one of the saddest things is when someone wants to improve their health and well-being, and they cannot find 15 minutes in their daily schedule to do something that will improve their health, whether it be taking a 15-minute walk or actually making a salad from scratch or whatever it might be. It is sad, and then feeling like everything has to be done. So I really want to encourage whoever's listening today to take a look at that and remember those big rocks, and know that you have the power to say no to some things and without guilt. And learning to simplify your schedule will give you the time for that self-care. And next week we're talking about simplifying your self-care.
Yes, we are.
And the
I'm
end
excited
goal
for that
is
one.
to have a fulfilling life where you have time for what you love and what matters most to you.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautifully said. And I love that you revisited a few things that remind us our schedule should reflect what's most important to us.
Yeah.
And we can say no without the guilt.
yes.
Right. And like you said, and better living your life according to your priorities, which I would assume most people have health as one of their priorities. Maybe that's a poor assumption, but I think most of us
We
want
get to
to
that
be
point.
healthy.
Yeah.
And to do that, it doesn't just happen. We have
Yeah.
to make the time for it. We have to make the efforts.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, beautifully said.
And having a healthy relationship or
Yeah.
time with family, it takes saying no to something else. So
Yep, absolutely.
you can do that.
All right. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
today. All of these sessions have been just really, really good. Like really is simple. And we do make it so complicated. I still love that quote from one of the first weeks that we did. And just remembering that there are so many ways that we can begin to simplify our lives. And Linda has given us lots of options over the last few weeks of ideas to start with, things to try, see what works for you. There is no cookie cutter. There is no magic wand, unfortunately. But it just takes the effort, and it's worth it. Definitely. And it's always a work in progress, right? I mean, even today we were talking about what we continue to work on. And so even though this is what we do for a living and we teach others, we're not perfect at it. It's still an ongoing learning process. So learning to offer yourself that grace and compassion when you are feeling overwhelmed and you do need to slow down and reconnect with your priorities, those big rocks, and hit it again the next day. So like I said before, if you have not seen all of the sessions, if you missed any of them and you'd like to go back and watch them, they're available on our website on the main landing page. Scroll down about 2/3 of the way down and you'll see those. They're free for you to watch anytime, anywhere. Make sure you share them too. We'd appreciate it. And the worksheets are available under the resources tab on our website. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out for sure. Linda is available. Her email address is here. She's very good about checking emails consistently and getting back to them quickly. I'm not as good, so keep that in mind. But also Linda does free 15-minute consultations. And so if you'd ever like to schedule a free consultation with Linda to learn more about what coaching is, how it might be beneficial for you, that's a great opportunity. So please take advantage of that. If you're interested in learning more about Statera in general or the other services that we offer, you can schedule a free 30-minute consultation with myself. To do that, you can go to our website, click on the upper right button that says free consult, or you can call us 563-207-8932. And again, thank you, Linda, so much for all of the great information. Thank you guys for joining us either today or whenever you're able to watch this.
See you in 2 weeks.
We'll see you in 2 weeks for our last one. Simplify your self-care. Might be my favorite one. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.